So for section 3.1, we have to solve, graph, and put the solution in interval notation for the given inequalities. So we'll handle this just like an equation. The only exception is when you have an inequality and you have to multiply or divide through by a negative, then you have to flip the inequality symbol. Other than that, you leave it alone. So now all we have to do to isolate x is subtract 8 from both sides. So if we subtract 8 from this side, we're just left with x. And subtracting 8 from this side, we get x is less than 2. So now we'll graph that. So we've solved it. Now we're going to graph it. And we'll put a hash mark at 2 and an open circle. And the reason that's an open circle is because we have no equal sign associated with this. So if x is 2, that doesn't satisfy the inequality, but if x is any value less than 2, it does. So it can include 2, and we'll shade everything to the left. That's where all the solutions are. To the left of 2, they're less than 2. And in interval notation, that's negative infinity, and 2 in parenthesis and parenthesis. Now, if there was an equal sign associated with this, we'd put a bracket on this 2, but since it's a no equal sign, we'll put a parenthesis. Now let's do the next one, 2, and we've got negative 3/2 x minus 9 is greater than or equal to 3. Well, our first task is to isolate the term with x in it. So to do that, we'll add 9 to both sides. So negative 3/2 x. And if we add 9 to this side, all we're left with is negative 3/2 x. If we add 9 to this side, we have negative 3/2 x is greater than or equal to 12. Now we need to isolate x. So to do that, we'll multiply through by the reciprocal of negative 3/2, which is negative 2/3. And if we multiply this side by negative 2/3, the product of reciprocals is 1, and we're left with x. But we just multiplied through by a negative, so we have to flip that inequality. And now we have 12 times negative 2/3, and x is less than or equal to, now this product is going to be negative because there's an odd number of negative factors, and 3 goes into 12 4 times. We've already taken care of the sign, so 4 times 2 is 8. So x is less than or equal to negative 8. So now we'll graph, and here's our hash mark at negative 8. And now we'll put a solid circle here, because if we put negative 8 in for x, that satisfies the inequality. So x can not only be any value less than 8, it can also negative 8, it can also be negative 8. And we'll shade everything to the left. And in interval notation, that'll be negative infinity and negative 8. And now, because there's an equal sign, we can include 8. We'll put a bracket. But we never get to infinity, so that just remains a parenthesis, and we are done.